There is a woman in Tokyo who leaves her office at exactly 5:32 every afternoon, not 6:15, not 7, after answering one last email that somehow turns into 5 more. At 5:32, she closes her laptop, picks up her bag, and goes home. She has the same job title as the people sitting around her, the same crowded inbox, the same deadlines, and the same 2 children waiting for her at home. She does not type faster than everyone else. She does not have a personal assistant. And if you ask the people in her office, none of them would say she works less than they do. But somewhere else, at that exact moment, another person is standing in front of an open refrigerator, too tired to decide what to make for dinner. Someone is searching through 3 kitchen drawers for a charger they were sure they left on the counter. Someone is sitting in a meeting that should have been an email, watching the clock and quietly calculating how much of their actual life this hour is costing them. Maybe you know that feeling. You are busy all day. You do everything you are supposed to do. And yet, by the time evening comes, it feels as though the day disappeared without ever really belonging to you. So, what separates these 2 people? What if it has nothing to do with intelligence? What if it has nothing to do with income, discipline, or waking up at 5 in the morning? What if one person simply has fewer decisions left to make? Because here is something I did not understand for a long time. The work itself is not always what exhausts us. Sometimes it is everything surrounding the work. Where do I begin? Where did I put that? What should I cook? Which task should I do first? Should I answer this message now? Do I need to buy another one? What exactly are we deciding in this meeting? Each question seems small. Most take only a few seconds. But when the same questions return every day, they create something I call decision friction. Decision friction is the time and mental energy we lose before the real task even begins. It is the pause before choosing, the search before starting, the interruption before finishing, and the decision we thought we had already made, showing up again tomorrow. Now, the woman in Tokyo is not one specific person. Think of her as a picture of a pattern, a life in which hundreds of small questions have already been answered by simple routines. Her keys have a place. Dinner already has a starting point. The tools she needs are easy to find. And some of tomorrow's decisions were quietly handled today. That does not mean every Japanese person lives this way. Japan is not free from stress, overwork, clutter, or wasted time. No country is. But Japanese daily life offers a number of practices and ideas that reveal something important. A calmer day is not always created by doing things faster. Sometimes it is created by having fewer things to decide. In this video, I am going to show you 10 Japanese habits that can help reduce that everyday friction. You do not need to rebuild your life. You do not need a complicated planner. And you do not need to begin all 10 habits tomorrow morning. Each one starts with a small action you can test in your own life. By the time we reach habit number 6, you will see how one Japanese workplace practice can turn a long, circular meeting into a short confirmation without forcing everyone to argue in the room. And stay with me until habit number 10. It is not the habit that saves the most time in a single day. It is the habit that decides whether the other 9 are still part of your life next month, or whether they disappear like every routine you once promised yourself you would keep. The woman who leaves her office at 5:32 probably would not describe herself as unusually productive. She would probably say she is just living a normal day, and that may be the real secret. The people who seem to have the most time are not always managing their time better. They may simply have fewer decisions waiting for them. Let's begin with the first place many of those decisions can be closed. The moment you walk through your front door, habit number 1 is the genkan. In a traditional Japanese home, the genkan is the small entrance area between the front door and the main living space. It is where shoes come off before you step farther inside. But it is more than a place to leave your shoes. It is a landing zone, a place where the things you carry through the outside world are deliberately put down before the rest of your evening begins. Now, compare that with what happens in many homes. You walk through the door with your hands full, your bag lands on a chair, your keys go on the kitchen counter, your shoes come off somewhere between the hallway and the couch. At the time, none of this feels important. You are tired, you are home, you will deal with it later. But later usually arrives the next morning. You are already running behind. You check the counter, no keys. You search your jacket pockets. Then the bedroom. Then the bathroom, for some reason. A few minutes disappear, your stress rises, and the day begins with the feeling that you are already losing control. The problem is not that you have a bad memory. The problem is that your keys never had a permanent destination. In a genkan-inspired system, the answer is decided in advance. The keys go on the same hook. The bag goes in the same place. The shoes return to the same position. Not most of the time. Every time. And that matters because the best system is not one you have to remember to use. It is one that removes the need to remember. You do not need to reorganize your entire home tonight. Choose only 3 things you search for most often. Maybe it is your keys, your wallet, and your work bag. Give each one a fixed place near the front door. Make the place visible. Make it easy to reach. And make returning the item easier than leaving it anywhere else. That last part is important. If the hook is hidden behind a closet door, you probably will not use it. If the basket is across the room, your bag will still end up on the nearest chair. A good system should work with the tired version of you, not only the organized version of you. There is also something deeper happening here. The genkan is not only about keeping the house tidy, it creates a transition. When you take off your shoes, hang up your keys, and put down your bag deliberately, you are also putting down part of the outside day. The commute, the unfinished conversation, the email you are still thinking about. The feeling that you should be doing one more thing. The ritual tells your mind that one part of the day has ended and another has begun. Tomorrow morning, the difference may look almost too small to notice. One person runs through 3 rooms looking for their keys. The other reaches toward the same hook without thinking. That is not better memory. That is one decision that no longer needs to be made. So tonight, do not organize your whole entrance. Just choose 3 objects. Give them 3 permanent places. And the next time you walk out the door without searching your pockets, checking the counter, or blaming yourself for being forgetful, you will understand why such a small habit can change the feeling of an entire morning. That is habit number 1. But physical clutter is not the only thing quietly stealing your time. The next habit deals with the clutter inside your attention. Habit number 2 is ichigo ichie. The phrase is often translated as one time, one meeting. It carries the idea that this exact moment will never happen in quite the same way again. The people will be different. The circumstances will change. Even you will not be exactly the same person tomorrow. So, the moment in front of you deserves your full presence. Ichigo ichie was not created as a productivity technique. It comes from a much deeper way of thinking about attention, connection, and the temporary nature of life. But its lesson happens to be a powerful answer to one of the most exhausting habits in modern life, trying to be everywhere at once. Most of us call it multitasking. We answer a message while making dinner. We listen to a meeting while checking email. We begin one task, notice a notification, open another tab, remember something else, and suddenly find ourselves working on 4 different things without finishing any of them. It feels efficient because we are constantly moving, but movement is not always progress. Every time your attention leaves one task and moves to another, part of your mind remains behind. You return to the first task and have to ask yourself, where was I? What was I trying to say? What still needs to be done? That rebuilding takes time, sometimes only a few seconds, sometimes several minutes, but it happens again and again throughout the day. And the real cost is not only the time spent switching, it is the mistakes you have to correct, the details you forget, the email you read twice, the sentence you rewrite because you lost the thought halfway through, the pan you nearly burn because you looked at your phone for what felt like 10 seconds. Multitasking does not always help us do more. Often, it simply helps us begin more things than we can finish. And unfinished work carries a strange weight. One completed task usually leaves the mind quieter. 5 tasks that are each 90% finished remain present in the background, asking for attention even when you are trying to rest. You do not need to become perfectly focused for the entire day. That is not realistic for most people. Work changes, children need something, phones ring, unexpected problems appear. The goal is not to protect every minute from interruption. The goal is to experience what it feels like to give one small moment your complete attention. So, try this for 10 minutes. Choose one task with a visible finish line, not work on the project. That is too large and too vague. Choose something you can clearly complete. Reply to one important email. Wash the dishes currently in the sink. Finish one paragraph. Review one page of a report. Make one phone call you have been avoiding. Then set a timer for 10 minutes. Put your phone face down. If possible, move it beyond arm's reach. Close every tab you do not need. Keep only the document, page, or tool required for the task in front of you. And until the timer ends, do not allow another task to become important. You may remember something you need to buy. You may feel the urge to check a message. You may suddenly decide that reorganizing your desk is more urgent than the work you chose. That does not mean you are failing. It simply means your attention has become accustomed to escaping whenever a task becomes slightly uncomfortable. Notice the urge, then return. For those 10 minutes, let one thing be enough. There is something surprisingly calming about reaching a clear ending. The email is sent, the paragraph is finished, the sink is empty, the report section is complete. Your mind no longer has to hold that task open. And once you feel the difference, you begin to notice how often divided attention has been exhausting you. Not because every task is difficult, but because no task is ever allowed to end before the next one begins. That is the lesson ichigo offers us. This moment does not need to compete with 5 other moments. The person speaking to you does not need to compete with your phone. The meal you are preparing does not need to compete with your inbox. The task in front of you does not need your attention for the rest of your life. It may only need 10 honest minutes. Attention becomes more valuable when it stops being divided into fragments. So today, choose one small task. Give it one uninterrupted window, and let yourself experience the relief of finishing something completely. That is habit number 2. But divided attention is not only a problem at work, it follows us home. And it often becomes most obvious at the end of the day, when one simple question suddenly feels much harder than it should. What should I make for dinner? Habit number 3 is tsukurioki. Tsukurioki is the Japanese practice of preparing food in advance so that later meals require less time, less effort, and fewer decisions. It does not mean spending your entire Sunday cooking every meal for the week. And it does not mean eating the same container of food 5 nights in a row. The idea is much simpler. You prepare a few useful parts of future meals before you are tired enough to resent the question. Because at the end of a long day, cooking is not always the hardest part. Deciding what to cook can be harder. You walk into the kitchen already tired. You open the refrigerator. Nothing looks right. You close it. A few minutes later, you open it again, as though a complete dinner might have appeared while you were gone. You look at the vegetables. You check the freezer. You consider ordering takeout. Then you remember the food you bought 3 days ago and feel slightly guilty that you have not used it. At that point, you are no longer making dinner. You are trying to solve 5 decisions at once. What do I want? What do I have? What will everyone else eat? How long will it take? And do I have enough energy to clean up afterward? That is why the refrigerator can feel so frustrating at the end of the day. You are not only looking for food, you are looking for a decision. Tsukurioki moves part of that decision to a time when your mind has more energy. Instead of preparing 5 complete meals, begin with 2 or 3 flexible components. Make a pot of rice or another grain. Prepare 1 source of protein. Wash and cut 1 or 2 vegetables. Make a sauce, a soup, or a simple simmered dish that can be used in more than one way. Then combine those pieces differently throughout the week. Rice, vegetables, and chicken might become a bowl one evening. The next day, the same vegetables can go into soup. The protein can be added to noodles, a salad, or a simple lunch. You are not repeating the same meal. You are starting from a place that is already halfway finished. That is the real goal. Not to eat the same dinner 5 times, but to make Tuesday night require assembly instead of invention. There is a big difference between those 2 experiences. Invention asks you to begin from nothing. Assembly gives you something to work with. And when your energy is low, having a starting point can matter more than having the perfect recipe. You do not need an elaborate meal prep system. You do not need a refrigerator filled with matching containers. This weekend, choose just 2 things that will make future meals easier. Cook extra rice. Wash the vegetables before putting them away. Prepare a sauce. Make a double portion of 1 dish that stores well. Even 1 prepared ingredient can close several decisions later. Of course, preparing food in advance also requires common sense. Cool cooked food properly. Store it safely. Pay attention to how long each dish keeps. And freeze portions when you know you will not use them soon. The point is not to trade decision fatigue for food waste. The point is to create a small reserve of help for the version of you who will come home tired later in the week. I think that is what makes this habit feel so different from ordinary meal planning. You are not trying to control every meal in advance. You are taking care of your future self before that person becomes too tired to make a good decision. On Sunday, washing vegetables may feel like a small task. On Wednesday night, those same vegetables can feel like someone already helped you. Preparation saves more than cooking time. It protects your evening energy from unnecessary decisions, and it changes the question. Instead of asking, "What can I possibly make?" you begin asking, "What can I put together with what is already ready?" That is a much easier question to answer. So begin small. Choose 1 grain, 1 protein, and 1 vegetable. Prepare only enough to make the next few meals easier. Then, notice what happens the first evening. You open the refrigerator and find that dinner already has a beginning. That is habit number 3. But preparing food becomes much easier when the kitchen itself gives you an immediate answer about where everything belongs. Habit number 4 is the 5S system. This habit began in Japanese workplaces, especially in environments where Losing even a few minutes searching for the right tool could slow down an entire process. The idea was simple. The things people need should be easy to find, easy to use, and easy to return. Because whenever a worker has to stop and ask, "Where is that tool?" the work has already been interrupted. The same thing happens inside your home. You open a drawer looking for a phone charger. You move past old batteries, 3 mystery cables, a broken pen, and something you have not used in 4 years. The charger is not there. So you check another drawer, then a bag, then the bedroom. And until you find it, part of your mind remains attached to the search. That is what makes disorganized spaces so tiring. They do not create one large problem. They create dozens of small, unfinished loops. Where is the tape? Where are the scissors? Which cable fits this device? Did we run out of batteries? Where did I put that document? Each question stays open until the object is found or the task is abandoned. The 5S system offers a practical way to close those loops. The first step is seiri. Seiri means removing what is unnecessary. Before deciding where everything should go, you first decide what deserves to remain. That expired coupon, the cable that belongs to a device you no longer own, and the pen that has not worked for 6 months do not need a better storage system. They need to leave the drawer. The second step is seiten. Arrange what remains so the correct place becomes obvious. Similar items stay together. Frequently used objects are easy to reach, and every item has one clear position. The third step is saiso. Clean the space. This may sound like a separate task, but cleaning often reveals problems that clutter hides. A sticky drawer, a damaged cable, or an empty battery package becomes easier to notice when the space is clear. The fourth step is seiketsu. Standardize the arrangement. This means deciding on one simple rule that keeps the space understandable. Chargers stay in this container. New batteries go on the left. Used batteries waiting to be recycled go on the right. The rule does not need to be complicated. It only needs to answer the same question the same way every time. And the fifth step is shitsuke. Maintain the habit. Return the object after using it. Not tomorrow. Not when the drawer becomes messy again. As soon as you are finished. That is the part that turns a clean space into a working system. And there is an important difference between organizing and creating a system. An organized drawer can look beautiful for one afternoon. A system tells you where an object should return every time. Imagine creating a small charging station in your home. One box holds the cables you actually use. Each cable is labeled or easy to identify. The adapters stay beside them. Phones, tablets, and headphones return to the same charging area. Now, when a battery is low, there is no search. Your hand already knows where to go. That is what a good system feels like. It does not impress you every day. It quietly prevents the same problem from happening again. You do not need to apply 5S to your entire home this weekend. That would probably create more work than relief. Choose one drawer, one shelf, or one small part of your kitchen counter. Remove what does not belong. Group what remains. Give each item a visible place. Clean the space. Then create one simple rule for putting everything back. Start with the place that frustrates you most often. Maybe it is the kitchen drawer you open every night. Maybe it is the shelf where mail disappears. Maybe it is the collection of chargers that somehow grows, even though you can never find the right one. Do not ask whether the space looks perfect. Ask a more useful question. Can I find what I need without thinking? Because a permanent place turns repeated searching into one automatic movement. You open the drawer. You reach toward the correct position. You take what you need, and the mental loop never opens. That is habit number 4. But physical objects are not the only things that create unfinished loops in the mind. Sometimes, the question running quietly in the background all day is not, "Where did I put it?" It is, "Where did my money go?" Habit number 5 is Kakeibo. Kakeibo is a Japanese household budgeting practice built around one simple idea. Write down what comes in, write down what goes out, and slow down long enough to notice what your spending is actually telling you. At first, that may sound almost too simple. After all, most of us can open a banking app and see every transaction from the past month. We already have the numbers. But having access to a number is not the same as paying attention to it. You can check your balance 5 times in one day and still feel unsure about your money. Can I afford this? Did I spend too much this week? Was that purchase a mistake? Why does my account always seem lower than I expected? Should I check again? Those questions rarely stay inside the banking app. They follow you into the grocery store. They sit beside you while you order dinner. They appear when an unexpected bill arrives. And even when you are not actively thinking about money, part of your mind may still be running the calculation in the background. That is what makes unclear spending so exhausting. It is not only about the dollars, it is about the uncertainty. Kakeibo turns that uncertainty into something visible. Traditionally, it is done by hand, not because writing on paper has some magical financial power, but because handwriting slows the decision down. When you write that you spent $12 on lunch, $40 on something you did not plan to buy, or $8 on a subscription you forgot you had, the purchase becomes harder to ignore. It stops being a vague feeling. It becomes a clear choice you can look at, and that is the real value of Kakeibo. It does not make money disappear more slowly. It turns vague financial feelings into conscious decisions. You do not need to create a complicated budget tonight. You do not need to track 20 categories. And you do not need a perfect spreadsheet. At the end of the day, take 2 minutes and write down what you spent. That is all. You can use a notebook, a note card, or one page you keep near your desk. Record the amount, then write a few simple words beside it. Groceries, transportation, lunch, convenience, something for the house, something I wanted, something I forgot to cancel. Do not judge the purchase while you are recording it. The first goal is simply to see it. Then, at the end of the week, ask yourself 4 questions. What did I spend? What was necessary? What was driven by convenience, stress, boredom, or emotion? And what would I change next week? That final question matters. Kakeibo is not meant to make you feel guilty every time you buy something enjoyable. The purpose is not to remove every pleasure from your life. It is to notice whether your money is supporting the life you actually want or quietly disappearing into habits you never consciously chose. Maybe you discover that takeout is not the real problem. Maybe the real problem is buying groceries without a plan and then ordering food because you are too tired to cook. Maybe the expensive purchase does not bother you at all because you planned for it and still value it. But 5 small purchases made from stress may bother you more than you expected. The number alone does not tell the whole story. The reason behind the number does. And once you can see the pattern, you no longer have to carry the question all day. You have already given it a place. You will review it at the end of the week. Until then, your mind does not need to reopen the same financial argument every few hours. Your result may not look like anyone else's. One person may realize they are checking their account 10 times a day. Another may notice they spend 20 minutes every evening wondering whether they made the wrong choice. Someone else may simply feel a low level of financial tension that never completely disappears. Do not measure this habit by a universal promise. Measure it by your own experience. How often do you check? How often do you worry? How often do you reconsider a purchase that has already been made? Then see what changes when the numbers are written down and reviewed at a specific time. Because a written number is easier to manage than an unnamed worry. That is habit number 5, and this is a good place to pause. We are halfway through the list. So far, we have talked about keys, attention, dinner, clutter, and money. On the surface, those may seem like 5 completely different problems, but they are all doing the same thing. They are closing decisions that would otherwise reopen tomorrow. The keys return to the same hook. One task receives your full attention. Dinner already has a starting point. The drawer gives you an immediate answer. Spending is recorded instead of repeatedly questioned. These habits do not save time only by making individual tasks faster. They reduce the number of moments when your day has to stop and ask, "What now?" Take a moment and think about yesterday. Not your worst day, just an ordinary one. How many minutes disappeared into searching? How many disappeared into switching between tasks? How many were spent deciding what to do? How many were lost waiting for an answer? And how many were spent redoing something because it was rushed, unclear, or interrupted? Choose the largest category. That is probably where your first habit should begin. Your personal time leak may be 10 minutes. It may be 2 hours. The exact number is not the most important part. The important question is this: will the same avoidable friction return tomorrow? Because that is where small habits become powerful. They do not only solve today's problem, they prevent you from paying for the same problem again. And the next habit deals with one of the most expensive places that repeated friction appears: the workplace meeting. Especially the kind where disagreement arrives too late, in front of too many people, and after everyone has already given up an hour of their day. Habit number 6 is Nemawashi. And if you have ever sat through a meeting that felt twice as long as it needed to be, this may be one of the most useful ideas in the entire video. Nemawashi is the Japanese practice of building understanding and addressing concerns before a formal meeting or decision. The word originally refers to preparing the roots of a tree before moving it. You do not simply pull the tree out of the ground and hope it survives. You prepare the soil. You loosen the roots. You make the move possible before the visible action begins. In the workplace, the idea is similar. The meeting is not always the place where every concern is discovered for the first time. A great deal of the real work happens before anyone enters the room. That is very different from the way many meetings usually begin. Someone presents a proposal that half the room has never seen. One person immediately notices a budget problem. Another realizes the timeline affects their team. Someone else disagrees with the basic direction. Then the meeting stops being about making a decision. It becomes the first draft of the conversation. People ask questions that could have been answered yesterday. Important objections appear after the agenda has already moved on. 2 people begin arguing over a detail that affects only their departments, and everyone else sits there, listening to a problem they cannot solve and may not even need to understand. By the end of the hour, the group is tired. The proposal is less clear than it was at the beginning, and someone says the sentence that usually guarantees another meeting. We need to think about this and come back to it. The problem is not always that the meeting was badly run. Sometimes the disagreement simply arrived too late. Nemawashi moves that disagreement earlier. Before the meeting, you write a short version of the proposal. Not a 20-page presentation, just enough for people to understand what you are recommending, why it matters, and what will change if the idea moves forward. Then you send it to the people who will be most affected. Not everyone in the company, only the people whose support, knowledge, or concerns could change the decision. and you ask a simple question. I'm planning to propose this approach tomorrow. Before I do, is there any risk, dependency, or objection I may be overlooking? That question does something important. It gives people permission to be honest before they feel pressure to perform in front of a group. A manager may tell you the timeline is unrealistic. A teammate may point out that another project depends on the same people. Someone in finance may notice a cost you missed. A person who would have stayed quiet in the meeting may explain privately why the proposal will create a problem for their team. Now you have time to adjust. You can clarify the confusing part, change the timeline, add missing information, remove a weak assumption, or decide that the idea is not ready for the meeting at all. By the time everyone enters the room, the proposal is no longer a surprise. The major concerns have already been heard. The people most affected understand what is being asked. And the meeting can focus on confirming, refining, or making the final decision. That does not mean Nemawashi eliminates disagreement. It should not. A workplace where nobody disagrees is not necessarily aligned. It may simply be a workplace where people no longer feel safe enough to speak. The value of Nemawashi is not that it makes every person agree. It gives disagreement a safer and more useful place to happen. A private conversation can help someone explain a concern without feeling that they must defend their status in front of the whole room. A short message can reveal a hidden dependency before it becomes an emergency. And a 5-minute conversation before the meeting can prevent a 40-minute argument during it. But this idea also needs to be used carefully. Not every issue should be solved privately. Some decisions affect the entire group and deserve open discussion. Sensitive topics should not be decided through quiet conversations that exclude the people who will live with the consequences. And Nemawashi should never become a way to manipulate people or create the appearance of agreement before anyone has had a real chance to respond. The goal is preparation, not secrecy. Understanding, not pressure. The best use of Nemawashi is simple. No one should walk into an important meeting and be surprised by a decision that will affect their work. So, before your next meeting, try 4 steps. Write the proposal in a few clear sentences. Send it to the people most affected. Ask what risk, concern, or dependency you may have missed. Then revise the proposal before the group discussion begins. The meeting may still need 30 minutes. The decision may still be difficult. People may still disagree, but at least the room will be working on the real decision instead of spending the first half of the meeting discovering what the decision is. That is the difference between a meeting that creates progress and a meeting that only creates another meeting. A short conversation before the meeting can prevent a long argument during the meeting. That is habit number 6. Meetings waste time when too many unresolved opinions enter the room. Homes become exhausting for a similar reason. Too many unresolved decisions remain inside them. Habit number 7 is Danshari. Danshari is a Japanese philosophy of reducing excess possessions and loosening our attachment to things that no longer serve a useful role. But it is deeper than cleaning out a closet once a year. Because clutter is not only about how many objects you own, it is also about how many unfinished decisions those objects continue to carry. Think about the shirt you never wear, but cannot quite give away, the broken lamp you have planned to repair for 2 years, the kitchen tool you bought for one recipe and have not touched since, the box in the garage labeled maybe. None of these objects seems like a serious problem on its own, but every time you see one, a small question appears. Should I keep this? Should I repair it? Where should it go? Will I need it someday? That hesitation may last only a few seconds, but the same decisions return every time you open the closet, move the box, or search through the drawer. Clutter is not only excess stuff. It is a collection of decisions you postponed. Maybe I will use it. Maybe I will fix it. Maybe it will become valuable. Maybe I will become the kind of person who needs it. And sometimes, keeping the object allows us to avoid answering a more honest question. Does this still belong in the life I actually live? Not the life I imagined 5 years ago. Not the life I may live someday. The life I live now. Danshari asks us to notice the difference between something that is useful and something we are simply afraid to release. That does not mean throwing away everything that is old, sentimental, or rarely used. A family photograph may have no practical function and still carry enormous value. A winter coat may sit untouched for most of the year and still deserve its place. The goal is not emptiness. The goal is intention, to know why something remains, and to stop letting indecision become the default answer. For the next month, try one simple rule inspired by Danshari. When one non-essential object enters your home, choose one unused object to remove. Donate it, recycle it, sell it. Give it to someone who will use it, or discard it responsibly if it no longer has value. The objects do not have to match. You buy a new shirt, and an old kitchen gadget leaves. A new book enters, and a box of forgotten cables is finally sorted. The point is not to create a perfect exchange. It is to prevent new possessions from entering while every old decision remains untouched. If that rule feels too rigid, try an even smaller version. Choose one small area each day, one shelf, one section of a closet, one bathroom drawer. Then make one clear decision, not an entire room, not a dramatic weekend purge, just one object that has been waiting for an answer. Keep it intentionally. Move it to the place where it is actually used. Donate it. Repair it by a specific date, or let it go. The important part is that the decision ends. Because I will deal with it later is not really a decision. It is a decision that has been scheduled to interrupt you again. There is also a hidden emotional weight inside clutter. Some objects represent guilt, the expensive exercise equipment you stopped using, the hobby supplies for a version of yourself you never became, the gift you do not like but feel obligated to keep, the clothes that no longer fit but still measure you against an earlier version of your body. These objects do more than occupy physical space. They can quietly ask you to explain yourself every time you see them. Why did I buy this? Why did I stop? Why am I not using it? What is wrong with me? Danshari offers a gentler question. Does keeping this object help me live better now? If the answer is yes, keep it without guilt. If the answer is no, releasing it does not mean the purchase, relationship, or period of your life meant nothing. It only means the object no longer needs to carry that meaning for you. And when an unused object leaves, something else leaves with it. The question attached to it. You no longer have to decide where it belongs. You no longer have to move it to reach something useful. You no longer have to promise that someday you will become the person who needs it. The decision is closed, and the space becomes easier to understand. That is why reducing clutter can make a home feel calmer even before it looks dramatically different. There are fewer objects competing for attention, fewer choices hiding in the closet, fewer old intentions waiting to be completed. So do not begin by asking, how much can I throw away? Ask a better question. What decision has been waiting the longest? Choose one object. Give it a clear answer. Then notice how much lighter one small corner of your home feels when nothing inside it is still waiting for someday. Removing an unused object also closes the decision attached to it. That is habit number 7. Danshari asks whether an object deserves to remain. The next idea asks a different question. Could one flexible object replace several specialized ones? Habit number 8 is inspired by furoshiki. Furoshiki is a traditional Japanese wrapping cloth. At first, it may look like nothing more than a square piece of fabric. But depending on how it is folded and tied, that same cloth can wrap a lunch, carry a bottle, protect a book, hold groceries, or present a gift. One object. Many possible uses. Now, to be clear, the furoshiki principle is not an official Japanese productivity system. It is simply a useful idea we can borrow from the object itself. Choose flexibility before specialization. Because over time, many homes fill with things designed to solve one very specific problem. A special container for one kind of food. A tool for a recipe you make twice a year. A storage box for another storage box. A gadget that promises to save 30 seconds, but requires its own drawer, charger, instructions, and replacement parts. At the moment of purchase, each object seems helpful. It appears to solve a problem. But the purchase is only the beginning of the relationship. Now the object has to be stored. You need to remember where you put it. You have to clean it, maintain it, move it when you need something behind it, and eventually decide whether to keep, donate, recycle, or throw it away. A single-purpose object may solve one problem today while quietly creating several future decisions. That is why the real cost of an object is not only its price, it is also the attention it will require after it enters your home. Furoshiki offers a different way of thinking. Imagine the same cloth moving through one ordinary day. In the morning, it wraps a lunch. Later, it is retied into a small carrying bag. In the evening, it is used to wrap a gift. When the day is over, it folds flat and returns to a drawer. It does not need a large storage space. It does not become useless when one specific purpose disappears. Its value comes from being adaptable. You can apply the same idea even if you never own a traditional furoshiki cloth. Before buying another specialized object, pause and ask 3 questions. Can something I already own perform this function? Could one flexible object solve 2 or 3 needs? And will this purchase reduce friction, or will it simply create more storage? Those questions do not mean you should never buy a specialized tool. Some tools are worth owning because they solve an important problem extremely well. A good kitchen knife has a clear purpose. A tool used every day can easily earn its place. The point is not to avoid specialization completely. The point is to become more careful about objects designed for rare problems. Ask yourself how often the problem actually occurs. Ask where the object will live when it is not being used. Ask whether you already own something that can do the job well enough. Good enough is important here. Sometimes we buy a perfect solution for a problem that only needed a simple one. You may not need a special cable organizer if a small box already keeps the cables together. You may not need another gift bag if a reusable piece of fabric, paper, or container can do the same job. You may not need a new kitchen gadget if a knife and a bowl can handle the task with only a little more effort. The goal is not to make life inconvenient. It is to notice when convenience today creates clutter tomorrow. A flexible object can reduce the number of things you need to store, remember, maintain, and eventually remove. And there is another benefit. Flexible objects encourage flexible thinking. Instead of immediately asking, "What should I buy for this problem?" you begin asking, "What do I already have that could work?" That question interrupts automatic consumption. It creates a small space between noticing a need and purchasing a solution. And in that space, you may realize the problem has already been solved. So this week, Before buying one single-purpose object, pause. Look around your home. Open the drawer. Check the closet. Ask whether something you already own could perform the same role. Maybe the answer is no. And if the new object will genuinely reduce friction in your life, buy it intentionally. But if the answer is yes, you have avoided more than one purchase. You have avoided another object to store, another thing to maintain, and another decision your future self will eventually have to make. A useful object should solve a problem without creating 3 new ones: storage, maintenance, and another future decision. That is habit number 8. Some habits prevent wasted time before it happens. The next habit does something slightly different. It prevents the same mistake from taking your time twice. Habit number 9 is Hansei. Hansei is the Japanese practice of looking honestly at what happened, understanding why it happened, and deciding what should change next time. That may sound like ordinary reflection, but there is an important difference. Hansei is not about sitting at the end of the day and criticizing yourself for everything that went wrong. It is not about replaying an awkward conversation for the 10th time. And it is not about asking why you cannot be more disciplined, more organized, or more like someone else. The purpose is not punishment. The purpose is clarity. Because many of the hours we lose are not lost to new problems. They are lost to the same problems returning in slightly different forms. A meeting runs long because no one prepared an agenda. The following week, another meeting runs long for the same reason. A report is delayed because the necessary information was requested too late. The next month, the same thing happens again. A document disappears inside an unclear filing system. You eventually find it, feel relieved, and then put it back into the same system that caused the problem. Dinner becomes stressful because nothing was prepared. The evening ends, the stress fades, and a few days later, the same question returns. Without reflection, relief can be mistaken for resolution. The problem ends for the moment, so we assume the problem has been solved. But it has only gone quiet. It is waiting for the same conditions to return. Hansei interrupts that pattern. It asks you to stop for a moment before the lesson disappears. You do not need a long journal entry. You do not need to analyze your entire personality. At the end of the day, write only 3 short lines. First, what cost me unexpected time today? Maybe a meeting went 20 minutes over. Maybe you searched for a document. Maybe you had to redo a task because the instructions were unclear. Maybe an hour disappeared into your phone when you meant to check one message. Do not begin with blame. Begin with the event. What actually happened? Second, what caused it? This is where honesty matters. But honesty does not mean being cruel. I am lazy is usually not a useful cause. I have no self-control does not give you anything practical to change. Look for the condition that made the problem more likely. The meeting had no clear decision owner. The document did not have a fixed location. The task felt too large, so you avoided starting it. The phone was beside you while you were tired. Dinner required too many decisions at the end of the day. A useful cause should point toward something you can adjust. Then write the 3rd line. What one change will I test tomorrow? Not what will I completely fix. Not how will I become a better person. What small experiment will I try? For example, the meeting ran over because nobody owned the final decision. Tomorrow I will ask who has decision authority before the discussion begins. Or, I lost 15 minutes searching for the insurance document. Tomorrow I will create one clearly labeled folder for important household papers. Or, I delayed the report because the first step was unclear. Tomorrow I will write the first 3 actions before opening my email. The third question is what keeps reflection from becoming rumination? Reflection looks at the past to improve the next action. Rumination looks at the past and keeps you trapped inside it. One produces an experiment. The other produces another round of self-criticism. That is why the action needs to be small. If your reflection ends with, "Tomorrow I will be more focused," nothing has really changed. What does more focused mean at 9 tomorrow morning? Will the phone be in another room? Will one tab be open? Will you begin with a 10-minute timer? Will you ask for clearer instructions before starting? The change needs to be visible enough that you can tell whether you tested it. You are not trying to prove that it will work forever. You are only collecting information. This is something many people miss about improvement. We often treat every new habit like a permanent promise. Starting tomorrow, I will never be late. I will never lose anything. I will always prepare meals. I will stop checking my phone. That kind of promise creates pressure before we have learned what actually helps. Hansei takes a quieter approach. Notice the pattern. Change one condition. Watch what happens, then adjust again. Maybe the new approach works. Maybe it does not. That is still useful information. If moving your phone across the room does not protect your focus, try placing it in another room. If sending the proposal before the meeting does not reveal the real objection, speak directly with the person most affected. If one folder does not solve the document problem, the labels may still be unclear. You are not failing. You are learning what the system needs. There is something relieving about this way of thinking. A difficult day no longer has to be wasted twice. The first loss may already have happened. The meeting ran long. The document disappeared. The evening became stressful. You cannot recover that exact hour, but you can stop the same hour from being taken again next week. That is a different kind of time recovery, not doing something faster, not squeezing another task into the schedule, simply refusing to pay for the same avoidable problem twice. So tonight, before you go to bed, ask yourself 3 questions. What cost me unexpected time? What caused it? What one small change will I test tomorrow? Keep the answer short. 1 sentence for each question is enough. The goal is not to write something impressive. The goal is to notice the pattern while it is still fresh. Because improvement often begins not with trying harder, but with noticing sooner. That is habit number 9. Hansei helps you identify what needs to change. The final habit makes that change small enough to survive. Habit number 10 is Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement through small, repeatable steps. And this final habit is different from the others. It is not the habit that directly saves the most time. It does not organize your entrance. It does not prepare dinner. It does not shorten a meeting or clear a drawer. But it determines whether any of those changes are still part of your life a month from now. Because most people do not fail when they try to improve their lives. They fail because they try to improve everything at once. You know how this usually goes. Monday arrives. You decide this is the week everything changes. You organize every room. You start meal prepping. You create a new budget. You download a habit tracker. You wake up earlier. You promise to stop checking your phone. And you begin a completely new morning routine before breakfast. For a day or two, it feels exciting. You are motivated. Everything seems possible. Then work becomes busy. A child gets sick. You sleep badly. Dinner does not go according to plan. And by Thursday, the system begins to collapse. One habit is missed. Then another. And because the plan depended on doing everything perfectly, missing one part makes the entire effort feel like failure. So, you stop. Not because the ideas were bad, not because you lacked discipline, but because the change was too large to survive an ordinary week. Kaizen takes the opposite approach. Instead of asking, "How much can I change right now?" it asks, "What is the smallest change I can repeat without having to fight myself every day?" That question may feel almost too modest. Sometimes the first step is so small that it feels embarrassing. But that is the point. A small action can survive a difficult day. It can survive low motivation. It can survive a busy schedule. And once it becomes normal, it no longer depends on excitement. So choose exactly one habit from this video, not 3, not the 5 that sound most useful. 1. Then practice only the smallest version of it for 7 days. If you choose the genkan habit, do not reorganize the entire entrance. Put only your keys in one fixed place. Every time you come home, the keys return there. That is all. If you choose ichigo ichie, do not try to become focused for 8 hours. Complete one 10-minute focus session each day. One task, one finish line, 10 minutes. If you choose tsukurioki, do not prepare every meal for the week. Prepare one ingredient for tomorrow. Wash the vegetables. Cook extra rice. Make one sauce. Give your future self one starting point. If you choose 5S, do not organize the whole kitchen. Choose one drawer. Remove what does not belong. Give what remains a clear position. Then stop. If you choose Kakeibo, do not build a complete financial system. Write down what you spent today. One day, one page, no judgment. If you choose Nemawashi, do not redesign every meeting at work. Before one important meeting, send one short message asking what concern or dependency you may have missed. If you choose Danshari, remove one unused object, not an entire closet. One object that has been waiting for a decision. If you choose the furoshiki principle, pause before one unnecessary purchase. Ask whether something you already own can solve the same problem. If you choose Hansei, write one sentence before bed. What cost me unexpected time today? You can add the other 2 questions later. For the first week, one honest sentence is enough. The goal of those 7 days is not to save an hour. It is not to transform your home. It is not to prove that you are disciplined. The goal is to remove the daily negotiation about whether you will begin, because negotiation is where many habits disappear. Should I do it now? Maybe I should start tomorrow. Do I have enough time? Would it be better to create a complete system first? What if I cannot maintain it? The larger the habit, the more arguments your mind can create against starting. But when the action takes 1 or 2 minutes, there is very little left to debate. The keys go on the hook. The expense goes in the notebook. One object leaves the drawer. One sentence goes on the page. The action happens before resistance has time to build a convincing case. And after several days, something begins to change. The habit stops feeling like a project. It becomes part of the shape of the day. You no longer stand at the door deciding where the keys should go. Your hand moves toward the hook. You no longer ask whether you should record the expense. The notebook is already open. You no longer need motivation to begin the 10-minute focus session. It has become as ordinary as making coffee. That is when a habit becomes powerful. Not when it feels impressive. Not when other people can see how disciplined you are, but when it becomes too normal to resist. Then, and only then, add the next step. Maybe the keys are automatic, so you add the wallet. Maybe one prepared ingredient has become easy, so you prepare 2. Maybe one drawer stays organized, so you move to the shelf beside it. The change grows because the foundation is stable. Not because you forced yourself to become a different person overnight. This is also where Hansei and Kaizen work together. Hansei helps you notice what needs to change. Kaizen helps you choose a version small enough to test. You notice that your morning begins with a search for keys, so you create one fixed place. You notice that dinner becomes stressful because nothing is ready, so you prepare one ingredient. You notice that meetings begin with confusion, so you send one message beforehand. Notice, adjust, repeat. That is the rhythm, not a dramatic transformation, a quiet correction, then another. And over time, those small corrections begin to change the entire system around you. Think again about the woman who leaves her office at 5:32. She probably did not wake up one Monday and install 10 perfect habits. Her life may have changed through steps too small to remember. A hook near the door, a place for important documents, a meal component prepared in advance, a conversation held before a meeting, one small decision closed, then another. Years later, those decisions no longer feel like habits. They feel like a normal day. That is the real promise of Kaizen. Not that one tiny action will change everything tomorrow, but that one action, repeated without argument, can eventually change what normal feels like. So do not finish this video by choosing all 10 habits. Choose one. Make it smaller than you think it should be. Repeat it for 7 days. And do not add the next habit until the first one begins to happen without a conversation in your head. A habit becomes powerful not when it feels impressive, but when it becomes too normal to resist. That is habit number 10. And now, let us bring all 10 habits back to the question we began with. Where does your time actually go? So, let us bring all 10 habits back to the question we started with. Where does your time actually go? The genkan removes the morning search for the things you use every day. Your keys have a place. Your bag has a place. Your shoes return to the same position. Ichigo ichie reduces the cost of divided attention. For one small window of time, one task is allowed to be enough. Tsukurioki removes the repeated question of what to make for dinner. The meal does not have to be finished. It simply needs a beginning. The 5S system makes the correct place obvious. You no longer organize a drawer once and hope it stays that way. You create a rule that tells every object where to return. Kakeibo closes the vague financial questions running in the background. Instead of wondering where the money went, you give the numbers a place and a time to be reviewed. Nemawashi moves disagreement to a more useful moment. People can raise concerns before the meeting. Instead of discovering every problem after everyone is already sitting in the room, Danshari removes postponed decisions from the home. An object is either useful, meaningful, waiting for a specific action, or ready to leave. The furoshiki principle asks whether one flexible object could replace several specialized ones. It helps you solve a problem without automatically creating more storage, maintenance, and future decisions. Hansei helps you notice the pattern before it repeats. The time may already be gone today, but the same mistake does not have to take it again next week. And Kaizen keeps the other 9 habits alive. Not through a dramatic transformation, through one small action repeated until it becomes normal. On the surface, these habits seem to solve different problems: keys, dinner, meetings, money, clutter, attention. But underneath, they are all doing the same thing. They are closing small decisions before those decisions can return and ask for your time again. And your result will not look exactly like anyone else's. Maybe these habits give you back 20 minutes. Maybe they give you several hours. Maybe the first thing you notice is not more time at all. Maybe it is a quieter morning, a calmer kitchen, a meeting that ends with a decision, or an evening when your mind is no longer carrying 10 unfinished questions. That still matters, because time is not lost only in large, obvious blocks. It disappears in 30 seconds repeated 20 times. It disappears in the object you search for every morning, the meal you have to invent every evening, the task you restart after every interruption, the meeting that discovers the problem too late, and the mistake no one stopped long enough to examine. Now think again about the woman in Tokyo who leaves her office at exactly 5:32. Maybe she does not leave on time because she works faster than everyone else. Maybe she does not have unusual discipline. Maybe she has not discovered a secret schedule that the rest of us missed. Maybe hundreds of small questions have already been answered by the way her day is arranged. Her keys go on the hook. The tools she needs have a place. Dinner already has a starting point. The important conversation happens before the meeting. The problem from yesterday becomes one small adjustment today. And because those decisions have been made before, there are fewer places for her time to disappear. She probably does not think of any of this as a productivity system. To her, it may simply feel like a normal day. That is what makes these habits powerful. A useful habit eventually stops feeling like something you are trying to do. It becomes part of the way life works. You no longer congratulate yourself for putting the keys on the hook. You just know where the keys are. You no longer need motivation to write down the expense. You simply record it. You no longer spend the meeting discovering what everyone thinks. You arrive already knowing where the real concerns are. The habit becomes invisible, but the time it protects remains yours. So do not finish this video by trying to redesign your entire life tonight. Do not buy a new planner. Do not organize every room. And do not promise yourself that tomorrow will be completely different. Choose one decision that keeps returning. Only one. Put one object where tomorrow's version of you will need it. Prepare one ingredient before you are tired. Write down one expense. Send one message before the meeting. Remove one object that has been waiting for an answer. Or write one sentence about where your time disappeared today. Close one decision. Then repeat that small action for 7 days. Not because 7 days will transform everything, but because it is long enough to learn whether the action makes tomorrow a little easier, and if it does, keep it. Let it become normal. Then add the next small change. I would like to know which habit you are choosing. Write it in the comments, along with the smallest version you will try for the next 7 days. Not the perfect version. The version you can still do on a tired Wednesday. And if you know someone who is doing everything they can, but still cannot understand where all their time keeps disappearing, share this video with them. They may not need to work faster. They may not need to wake up earlier. And they may not need another complicated system. They may be one small decision away from making tomorrow feel different. You may not need a better schedule. You may simply need fewer decisions waiting for you tomorrow.